When people see me, they assume because of the color of my skin, I'm supposed to act a certain way, think a certain way, walk a certain way, believe a certain thing, and yes, even vote a certain way. So imagine the surprise when they find out that I don't. And imagine the surprise when they find out that the box that culture has designated and created for someone like me gets destroyed. The image society painted for me wasn't promising. An image where God was absent, where I was tempted to engage with drugs, sex, willing to do anything to be viewed as cool. But then I realized I was the one with the paintbrush in my hand. And God had all the colors and a vision that hip hop or rap can help me see. Now, being a millennial in 2020, Cardi B's WAP is more interesting than knowing whether or not Amy Coney Barrett is a good choice for Supreme Court because, female empowerment. But if you recall from my last video, speaking up comes with a cost. Social misfit, reject, believing certain things in 2020 is like committing social suicide. Cancel culture is a real thing. And just straight up being called every name in the book, speaking up is its own challenge. But nothing was more difficult than speaking up as a conservative Christian. Now, there's a difference. You can ascribe to conservatism and not be religiously inclined. However, conservatives have one stark difference, that is, we believe that our rights come from God and not government. My journey might help you see why someone like me was more than willing to change their mind. Here are my top 3 reasons why I'm a conservative. Reason number 1, Officer Tatum. Now, growing up in New York City, I promise you NYPD was everywhere. The subway, the streets, Manhattan, Queens, especially Brooklyn and the Bronx. Being young in the city and the manipulation of media upon impressionable minds and being black, you're taught by culture that essentially cops are your enemies and you're a target and that you're systematically oppressed. Then, imagine my surprise when you stumble into a black officer who spits facts and fire all over social media and opens your mind to challenge your own perspectives of what the media portrays to what is actually true. Then, imagine a year right after, Black Lives Matter decides to turn the world and your city upside down and you speak out and that same officer finds your video on Instagram and retags you, then reposts you. Psalms 139:16 says, "Every day of your life was recorded in my book before a single day had ever even passed." Every day up to that point and after reminded me when God's ready to let people see you, they'll see you. Reason number 2, censorship. The issue of being silenced and the attack on freedom of speech is something I've learned firsthand. I've been constantly threatened on social media for either talking about Black Lives Matter, talking about something politically charged, or sharing something that fact checkers deems as false should be alarming to many. Imagine living in a point in time in the freest nation in the world where having a different point of view needs to be fact-checked before it's considered being acceptable to be expressed. Imagine then living in a time where if your view is fact-checked, even if it doesn't go against community guidelines, your entire page is censored, disabled, or just straight up deleted. You also might assume because I'm black, my voice might be elevated on certain issues pertaining to things in the black community, but being a black conservative gets you censored if your thinking doesn't align with pop culture and the narrative that blacks are oppressed. Go figure. But if that wasn't bad enough, we have the censorship fan club, the groupies of the left, which leads me to reason number 3, leftists and Democrat-run states. Yeah. That's what we're dealing with. Every riot, every business burned down, every black life lost in the midst of the riots, every act of violence, every place Black Lives Matter and Antifa marched in was a Democratic-run state by a Democratic-run mayor, by a Democratic-run governor. Kenosha, Democrat. Minneapolis, Democrat. New York City, Democrat. Chicago, Democrat. LA, Democrat. You get the picture? Proverbs 29:2 says, "When the righteous increase, the people rejoice. But when the wicked rule, the people groan." America has been groaning, and her heart is overwhelmed because her leaders have abused their power. Now, we're in a fraudulent election where Georgia is recounting votes, and North Carolina and Alaska was just now called President Trump. This is the time to hold the line. Keep the faith and remind yourself where your true hope lies. Titus 2:13 says, looking for that blessed hope and the glorious appearing of our great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Need hope? Look no further than Jesus. You're going to need him in these next couple of months. So keep that armor on tight. It's going to be a bumpy ride because you ain't seen nothing yet.